Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. If I look similar to my previous video, then you're correct. I like to film multiple things in one day, especially if I'm feeling pretty good. And I'm feeling pretty good this morning, so I figured let's just film all the things. So anyway, this is my March and April 2024 wrap up because March I only read 3 books. I only read 3 books. I did DNF. How many did I DNF? 2. DNF 2, read 3. So I just like didn't film one. I just was like, there's no purpose to film a March wrap up with that few things. And by the time I really thought of it, we were in the middle of moving from our normal house to the temp house. So I was just so busy. That's when I had like the least videos coming out. So I was just like, let's just wait until April. So this is like a pretty big, this is big because I read so many books in April. But before we get to April, let's talk about March. So first off, I had 2 DNFs in March. One of them you guys all know about because it was the book club pick. I DNF'd another book club pick. It was the March 2023 book club pick and it was Faybound, or was it February? Yeah, because I read it in March. That's why I think, right? One of our book club picks, whenever we were supposed to read Faybound, because I think actually A Good Girl's Guide to Murder was supposed to be March, and then The Familiar was April. So yeah, that's what it was. So our February 2024, what year is it? Our February 2024 book club pick, Faybound. I did DNF it. I loathed it. I so didn't like anything about it. I hated the characters. I hated the writing style. I hated the magic system. I hated everything about it. So I made it like 100 pages and I was like, I literally cannot do this anymore. I am so sorry. And I don't feel bad about it because a lot of people in the book club hated it or DNF'd it. So I was like, I feel a little bit better. I feel a little bit better now. And luckily a lot of people were already planning to read it, so I didn't feel like I forced that many people to read it. So thank goodness for that at least. And then the other one that I DNF'd was When Ghosts Call Us Home. I talk about this in my reading new books of 2024 vlog thing, whatever, that I just put out. So go check that out if you want full spoilers about why I DNF'd that. But this one was just, had an interesting plot, but it ended up going in a direction that I didn't like, and I knew halfway through it was not going to get above a 2-star, so I just didn't feel the purpose of finishing it and then tanking the review potentially because there's only like 400 reviews on this book. So I just did not want to do that, and so I just gave a review based on how I felt about it at the time, which is why I DNF'd it. So sadly, not great. And then the books that I actually finished for March, like I said, I had 3 books. 2 of them I read on Kindle. I read so much on Kindle because like I said, I was trying to like catch up on my ARCs and most of them were on Kindle fashion, and I don't have my library with me because I am in the temporary house. So because of that, pretty much everything I read in March and in April was on Kindle, which is crazy, or Audible. I read a lot of like audiobooks, which is really, really cool. I normally don't because I have such a hard time paying attention to audiobooks, but I did. I actually did a decent amount of audiobooks. First up, I read the it's a short story technically. I feel like I don't think it's technically long enough to be a novella. Maybe, I don't know if it's a novella or short story, but it is the Taylor Jenkins Reid book, Evidence of the Affair. And this is just an interesting short story. If you are bored and you just don't know what to read and you want to read something super short and you like Taylor Jenkins Reid, I would recommend this. It is on Kindle Unlimited right now. And it's just interesting. It was letters between a woman and a man whose spouses are cheating on them with each other. And it's the letters between them like kind of proving the affair is happening. And it's just, it's almost cathartic to read. It's very quick, especially because like some of the letters are really short, so it doesn't fill up a whole page. I give it a solid 3. And I mean, it was an entertaining read. If it was, I do wish it was longer. I wanted more, like, to know more about the characters, more about the consequences, etc. But for what it was, I was entertained. Then I read The Starling House, which I feel like everybody and their mother knows everything about The Starling House. But it's following our main character who becomes like enamored, or is enamored her whole life by this house that is known as The Starling House. And it's kind of like an old dilapidated house that the residents like never leave out of. And now it's owned by the son who has all these rumors that he murdered his parents and all this kind of stuff. And you slowly learn like what is really going on with the house. I gave it a 3, which is highly underwhelming. This was supposed to be a guaranteed 5-star for me. And I just thought it was so, what do the kids say, mid. I thought it was mid. at best. It's supposed to be a Beauty and the Beast retelling, which I like caught on to super fast, but I don't think it was like in a good way was a Beauty and the Beast retelling. And I'm glad I didn't know that going into it, because my expectations would have been even higher than they were, and they would have been dropped even lower. So not great in that department. But it was just, like I said, mid. I feel like there's literally, anytime I go to like describe it more, that's the first word that pops into my head. I just didn't really like the romance. I didn't feel the romance. I wanted the story to be about our main character and the house and the magic of the house, and that is kind of not what it turned into. And so I was majorly disappointed by that. And then the savior of March, which nobody saw coming, which I have a whole vlog about if you want to watch the whole vlog about it. Bride by Ali Hazelwood. 5-star. This is only the second 5-star that I've given Ali Hazelwood. I still like The Love Hypothesis better, but Bride is pretty dang close, minus some of the weird sex stuff that happens later in the book, which is not my cup of tea, but I loved the story, the mystery aspect of the book, the really interesting world that I feel like actually was built really well somehow. Like, I was not expecting a supposedly silly werewolf vampire romance story to have a really well built world around it and actually make sense more than some other fantasy books that I've read. Faybound. I don't get how we got to the point where Bride by Ali Hazelwood, silly vampire werewolf romance, has better world building than Faybound, high fantasy by like a really good fantasy writer. How did that happen? Like, I don't understand how that happened. But it's following our main character, Misery. I love that name. I love that name. If I ever had kids, I could not do that to them, but I would want to. I would want to. But the amount of, like, they would be made fun of so much if their name was Misery, but there's something just so beautiful about it, but I would never do it. I promise I would never do it. But Misery is our little vampire, and she ends up being put into a forced marriage kind of thing to this werewolf, and it's just, it's fun and it's cute and it's written super, super well, and it's very, oh, there's some very Darcy moments in it. Like, our werewolf boy is very Mr. Darcy at some moments, and I'm just like some of the subtleties that happen in Pride and Prejudice, especially the 2005 movie with Keira Knightley, you can feel some of that, okay? You can feel like when he reaches for her hand and touches her hand, or like helps her in the carriage in Pride and Prejudice, and he like flexes his hand. There are moments like that in this book, and that's all I want from a romance book. That is all I want. So this is 5-star. 5-star, so good. Still like The Love Hypothesis better, but this is easily better than the other two that I've read by her. So that is everything that I read in March. Like I said, March was a super, super chill non-reading month, which was really sad. April has been so good for me. My health has been significantly better, if you couldn't tell by more of, I feel like, a peppier video. I feel like my videos have seemed happier in the past like couple ones. My health has been slowly getting better, and obviously I have setbacks. I'm still expecting setbacks in the months coming, but I feel like a human again. I feel like a human again. I go through like periods of no pain at all, which is like amazing. So hopefully that continues and we keep getting better, and yeah, I'm just very excited. April was so good. Speaking of which, moving on to April, I have to look at this list because there are so many books. There are so many books, and I actually forgot to add one on here, and I don't remember, is it 12th Night? I don't remember what it was called. I'm gonna have to look on my computer. I read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 books. 15 books and 2 DNFs. What? Right? And one of the DNFs I actually cannot talk about because it is going to be in a video coming out in May. So I cannot talk about the DNF, but I will mention it in that video when it comes up. So good. But it was also weird because like April, I'm so excited how much I read. I am so excited about how much I read. But again, let's use that word again. It was mid. It was so mid. So many of the books were so mediocre, and I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked by how many times I was like, really? This is like published? I feel like I've read this book 1,000 times before. So it was a weird month, but I think I did I have a 5-star? I'm trying to look. That was a 5-star, that was a 5-star. So I had 2 5 stars. Let's go by star rating. I feel like it's been a while since I've done that, and I feel like that will organize it really well, and that will leave my 2 5 stars for the end of the video, which I'm really excited about. If you watched my 2024 reading vlog thing, this is gonna have a lot of books from there. There's a lot of crossover there, and you will know what one of the 5 stars is. So let's go. And if you want more in-depth thing, I definitely would go check that video out instead of just relying on this one. So let's start with books that I'm actually not rating, and that is Pretty Boys Are Poisonous by Megan Fox. I saw that she put out I'm a nosy bitch, okay? I am so into like celebrity gossip and stuff. I don't talk about it with other people except my husband. I tell my husband all these things, but I don't bother people with it. I just like hoard it to myself. I don't put anything on social media. I don't do anything like that. Like, I don't want to actually be in their lives. I just like have to know everything for some reason. I saw that Megan Fox had put out her new poetry book, and a lot of it had to do with Machine Gun Kelly. I was like, I have to read this. I have to read this. And you know what? A lot of it was really good. There was 2 poems in there that literally made me sob, like crying my eyes out. And it's just like, her poems are so painful, but they are very, this is like her first, I want to say, like published thing. So a lot of it was very repetitive. There was a lot of poems that you've kind of heard from other poetry people before. Like, you could have written some of those like in high school kind of thing. But there was like glimmers of like genius in there. And so I was really happy I read it just for those specific ones, because it did get a little tedious. There were a lot of repeats. But also the way that she like Taylor Swifted these men in her life. Because I read the interview afterwards because I didn't want to be tainted by like knowing anything besides that Machine Gun Kelly is in there. So I read the interview with Megan Fox, and she was like, I didn't want to name drop, but they know who they are. And I was like, and I mean, there's like physical abuse mentioned, like severe physical abuse, sexual abuse, emotional trauma. I mean, there is stuff in there, and she like references specific instances and describes them. So these men, and potentially women, I don't know if she was, I think she said specifically men, but I won't generalize. These people, I hope, are terrified, because the internet's really good at figuring stuff out. But I feel like this hasn't like hyped up enough for people to really go like deep diving. So so yeah, I was so happy she was able to like express herself in this way, and she said it was pretty healing, and it felt that way. It felt like she was finally able to get all this stuff off of her chest, and I loved that. And so, but I didn't feel comfortable rating it because it's such a personal collection, and it wasn't going to be a 5-star. If it was a 5-star, I would have given it a 5-star, but because it wasn't a 5-star, I'm not going to rate a collection like this. This is not a normal poetry collection. This is a trauma grief poetry collection, so I did not feel okay rating it, but I enjoyed it. If you want some different poetry, something by a celebrity or just potentially out of your comfort zone, lots of trigger warnings, but I would go check out Pretty Boys Are Poisonous. Okay, moving on to 1-star books. We have the single 1-star book that I read this month, because I do reserve 1 stars for atrocious books. This is The House of Last Resort by Christopher Golden. I even remember his name off the top of my head. That's how much I didn't like it. It was just bad. It was poorly written. This is following our main characters, who are a couple who are like, they just moved to Italy, I want to say. I think it's Italy. And this like area is slowly losing like money and stuff like that, so they really need to find a way to bring in new patrons, new people to come like with their businesses and stuff like that. So they're like, there's this program where I think it's like no money down or something like that, where it's very cheap to move there. And so they end up in this house known as the House of Last Resort, which nobody told them about that before they moved in. And obviously it ends up turning into demon possession stuff. The issue is that the writing is just bad. It's just really, really boring. It turns super weird at the end. I could not tell you actually what happened at the end. It was so strange. And the level of incompetent, idiot man writing in this. I'm so sick of men who write horror. I'm sure I'm gonna get some shit for this, but there are men who are very good at writing female characters. And then there's Christopher Golden, who thinks it's normal for women to sleep in thongs on the regular, like every night, and that it's normal that a woman in a thong is gonna get up in the middle of the night after hearing doors slamming and not put pants on. Pants is what I said in this. Again, I read this in the 2024 video if you want to check out more, but it's basically the same thing I'm saying here is women like pants. They love putting pants on, especially when they feel vulnerable. Like, pants are our besties, or even shorts, anything. I will take anything other than just walking around her house in a thong while she's trying to fight an intruder. Okay. I thought we were like done with this in like the 80s or the 90s even, but apparently not. Apparently this is still prevalent and men still think this is a normal thing that happens, which it is not. Okay? And I mean, I'm sure there are women out there who sleep in thongs, which to me is wild. That is wild to me. But it's generally not a thing. And you should probably not write them that way. So yeah, I was really pissed about this book. And again, even beside that, if you take that out, it still sucked. Like, it still was just a bad book, and I would not recommend it to anybody. If I can't tell you what happened at the end of a book, I mean, did it even happen then? Like, does the book even exist? Moving on to 2-star books, we have the very first one, which was a major bummer. It is a mystery thriller by Stacey Willingham, which I have given a 5-star in the past, but I have not liked this book or the last book that they wrote, and it is, what is it? Only If You're Lucky. I keep getting the name of this one wrong. This was 2 stars. It was just, I said it again, this is again in that 2024 new releases video. Ruth Ware in The It Girl did it better. This is just a basic It Girl story where we open up with the It Girl of a college missing and the fraternity boy next door is found murdered. And that's what the whole story is, really. Like, our main character getting absorbed into this It Girl clique and going from there and past trauma. And I hated the ending. I hated the ending so much. Was not a fan of the ending. Not a fan of really anything that happened in this book. It was so boring. And then when it wasn't boring, it was just a bad ending. But I'm like not gonna remember this book. I'm legitimately not gonna remember this book. So it gets a 2-star. Okay, the next one is The Inmate by Frida McFadden. She has got one more chance. So I love the Housemaid series. I absolutely love the Housemaid series. But everything else I've written so far, so anything I've read so far other than the Housemaid series, I have not liked. The Coworker got a 1-star / DNF, but I'm counting as a 1-star because I did skim it. I skimmed so much that book. It was so boring and the ending was stupid. The Inmate gets a 2-star. It is a little better. It is a little better than The Coworker. It was a lot more interesting as the book was going on. It was still rather boring for a lot of the book, and I didn't see the point of a lot of the book that happened. And then I also hated the ending. But again, I feel like I'm not gonna remember this one that much because it was just so mediocre, and I just didn't like things in it that happened. So it's following our main character, who is a nurse practitioner who ends up working at a prison back in her hometown because she can't get a job other places, and she wants to like raise her kids specifically in a house and stuff like that. And it's a lot of past trauma and past people coming back into her life, and that's that. And the most important part, she was part of, her friends were killed. When she was a kid, she was at like this party and a bunch of her friends were killed at it, and her ex-boyfriend was the one who went to jail for it because she ID'd him. So that's kind of the point, is dealing with that, her memories. Unreliable narrator, that one. The next one was, again, a huge disappointment. A Fragile Enchantment I finally read after 3 months of like saying I was gonna read it. The most generic young adult book that I've ever read. Again, I'm not going to go too much on this one because I went over it, I feel like, pretty extensively in that new reads vlog. So it's basically following our main character who is part of this one group of people who hates this other group of people. And her group of people have powers and the other group of people don't. No, they do. They do too. But then what's the point? I don't understand. Don't ask me any real questions about this book. I invite her because she is like this magical seamstress to come to the palace, and it's kind of like a political move, and she's going to make the wedding attire for the bride and groom of this wedding, and obviously she meets the groom, and it's the prince, and he is an angry little man, and I just don't like anything in this book. And obviously romance blooms and there's drama, but this is a straight up Bridgerton ripoff. Like, there's literally a gossip column that is the same as Lady Whistledown. It's just named differently, and it's just like, it wasn't even like hidden. It just stunk. It stunk. For as many young adult fiction books that I've read, it just stunk. There's so many better young adult fiction books than this one. Okay, moving on to 3 stars. This is definitely the biggest category. I am so dumb. I was searching everywhere for this book because I was like, I swear. So the first 3 star is the good, the bad, and the aunties. And I could not find the book for the life of me. It's literally in my notebook. I was like, where the heck did this book go? How did I possibly lose this? I know it was in the thumbnail. So how did I lose it? First 3 star, the book that I read with my mom, The Good, the Bad, and the Aunties. It's just fine. Like, it was a fun book. I think I said it was a 3.5, but it actually is a 3. It was just another fun part of the series. I do think books 1 and 2 were significantly better, especially book 1. Book 1 was so good. This one was just kind of like a short addition to the story that I don't know if it was necessarily needed, but there were sections of it that were funny. I don't think it was as funny as the first 2. If you want to stop after the second book, I would go ahead and stop after the second book. I don't think this one was necessary, but at the same time, I kind of still hope there's another one. For me, I kind of hope she starts a new series that's similar to this, because I feel like this one kind of has run its course a little bit, and it really didn't need this one, but it was still fun. It's following the first 2 books, and it's following our main character, Medi, and I really can't say anything other than that because there are spoilers for the first book relating to the theme of this one, but it is her and her mom and her aunts over in, I think they're in Jakarta, and yeah, they're spending the Chinese New Year in Jakarta, and they get into their normal shenanigans. The next one that I gave a 3 broke so many hearts. This was our March 2024 book club pick, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. I just didn't super vibe with this, and there is a super depressing, unnecessary pet death that happens in this that nobody warned me about. You people who kept telling me to read this, why wasn't I warned about this awful pet death? It was horrible. It wasn't like super graphic, but it was really sad the way it was like described and told. It was so depressing. So I didn't love that. That definitely brought it down like a 0.5 star. It still would have been a 3.5. I still didn't love the book. And I just wasn't super impressed with this compared to how everyone else felt about it. This one is also putting me in a bit of a young adult crisis, but I am hit or miss with young adult mystery thriller. I'm very, very hit or miss with young adult. Yeah. So I feel less crisis-y about this one, but I really was expecting this to be like a 5 star. I was expecting to go in this and be like wowed and shocked and like have no idea what's going on, but like everything makes sense at the end. But to me, it was just a mediocre young adult thriller. I really was expecting more from this. Then I read something completely surprising because I read a contemporary fiction, which is super weird, and I read The Husbands, which I also gave a 3 star. It's just, it's very interesting. It's very, very interesting. I do think the author didn't know what to do with the end of the book. Also, the trash truck's about to come through here. So you may hear it a little bit because I have the door open. If the door's not open, this room is super dark. So there's like a glass front door that's closed, but you can hear everything through the glass door. So this is following our main character who has apparently a magical attic that she never knew about. And one day a husband pops out of the attic, and when he goes back up in the attic, a different husband comes down from the attic, and her whole life around her changes based on the husband in the attic, and it's wild. It is such a weird magic system. The problem is it's so good up until about the last 30%, and then like I said, the author did not know where to go with the story because the end of the book leaves so much to be desired. There's no closure, really, in my opinion. I like kind of what the main character decided to do, but it still felt like a sacrifice to the story and not what actually should have happened. So it kind of was depressing, and you really don't get any closure in this book. So it got a 3-star because that ending was just very unsatisfying. But I would actually recommend that book because it is so wildly different than anything I've read. I would at least try it if you're interested in the subject matter, but I would get I would get it from like the library or try to get it from Libby. And then the last 3-star is a graphic novel that I literally just read last night, and it is 12th Grade Night. And then the next 3-star that I read is a graphic novel that I just read last night, and it was called 12th Grade Night. And it's kind of got it says it's a Heartstopper meets The Prince and the Dressmaker, and I loved both of those graphic novels. Obviously Heartstopper, Prince and the Dressmaker I talked about a while ago on my channel. That is such a beautiful graphic novel if you haven't read it yet. So this one I was like, okay, I like that idea. I did not like the romance, and I don't like the male character who our lead character was interested in. He was such a jerk to me. I did not understand the appeal. I actually loved the almost romance between our main lead and the girl in the story. I thought that would have been a significantly better romance, but the person she ends up with is just kind of a tool. And I was like, are we supposed to be excited about this? Because I did not like it. It kind of ruined the whole story, but I did like the general story and the telling, and it was a beautiful, actual graphic novel. But bummer, there was such an opportunity to have such a fun romance in this, and it kind of was totally ruined. Then the last 3 stars, kind of like a 3.5. It's the first volume in a comic book that will be coming out. It is an arc, and it is called Crave, and this was way out of my comfort zone. Like left field out of comfort zone. So this is following a group of, I want to say, early college students. I hope it's college. Yeah, it's definitely, I really hope it's college students now that I'm thinking back on it. I'm going to assume it's college students because of the sexual content in this. But it is a very interesting idea where it kind of does commentary on social media and apps. So this social media app has kind of dating app called Crave has taken over this school, and you basically ask the AI what you want and it tells you how to get what you want, and you figure out it's kind of doing that by spying on people, and it just goes crazy. It goes crazy. There's a lot of romance drama, there's a lot of sci-fi kind of dealing with it, but it's a lot of sexual content. So didn't love those parts of it, but I did like the actual backbone of it, and I will be continuing this comic book series. I'm really excited to see volume 2 because they could definitely expand upon the issues that this brought up, and I think it's gonna be really interesting. Moving on to 4-star books, there's really not that many, like I said. The 3-star books were definitely the most of them. The first up is another first volume in a comic book series, and it is called The Strange Tales of Oscar Zan Zan. The first oh my god. So if you don't know anything about graphic or comic books, within one volume there's normally 4 or 5 or 6 issues. So the first issue, sobbed. Uncontrollable sobbing. It was, oh my god. I was not expecting to immediately open up and within 3 pages be drowning in tears. Drowning in tears. It is following our main character, Oscar, Dr. Oscar Zan? I don't remember if it's doctor or not, but he is this ghostly figure, and he is a ghost hunter / adventurer kind of skeleton looking guy, and he goes to the unexplained and kind of tries and moves spirits on. So whether it's destroying them, bringing them peace, stuff like that. So in the very first story, it's the story of a miscarriage, and I was like, oh my god. And then the second story is of a soldier that died in World War I or World War II, I don't know which one, they didn't specify, I don't think. And then the next one is a ship full of people, and it was just and you go through the backstory of all these people that died, and it's so traumatizing, but in the best way. It was so good. It gets a 4 because 1 or 2 of the issues dragged on a bit. I was a little taken out of the stories of those 2 because they just kind of kept going. The first and second story worked so well because they were more short form and kind of got to the point, and they used more visuals than overselling the text. 2 of the issues were way too much text because that's kind of the point of your comic books and your graphic novels is you can see a lot of the stuff, so you don't need to be there doesn't need to be too much talking or like overdoing explanations, and I definitely feel like 2 of the issues overdid it on the explanations. So that's kind of why it gets a 4, but it was phenomenal, and I'm definitely going to be continuing in that comic book series. And then the next one was a surprise. I just kind of wanted something cute and heartwarming, so I picked up Castle Swimmer Volume 1. It is also a graphic novel coming out in the future sometime. I don't remember the dates. I'll put the dates up for anything that's an arc that is coming out later, because there are a couple. So like the Oscar Zan one is also an arc, and Castle Swimmer is an arc, and I think Crave, yeah, was also an arc. Castle Swimmer is so cute, and it was hilarious. This one is the closest one I've gotten to Heartstopper, and this one, if the second book or in the 3rd volume are even better, if it continues, this one could get bumped up to a 5-star. It was that good, and it was so funny. I wasn't expecting it to be so funny, but it's following our main character, who is kind of 2 main characters actually. This world is all underwater, and there's different like tribes, and each one has a ridiculous prophecy relating to their tribe, like breaking a curse, breaking this, bringing fortune, etc. But every single one, it's the same thing. This prophesied person will come, and they are who's going to do like set off the prophecy. And so it's this like basically teenage mermaid looking kid, and he glows. And when he gets close to a prophecy, it like sucks him over, and he kind of just has to like deal with it, but he doesn't know what he's doing, so he's just kind of like, I don't know. And it's so cute, it's so fun, and he finally like, most of the story is him at the shark tribe, because their prophecy is to kill the chosen one or whatever. And so it's him forming a relationship with the prince of the tribe, and it is so cute. It is so cute. I love it. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it. Definitely 4-star, because it did start dragging a bit in the middle. I thought it was a little too long, but again, if there's more, because you didn't really get into the romance in the first one. There's a couple cute moments, but I thought there'd be a little more romance in the first one. So if it continues and it gets a little more cutesy, then I could see the first one getting bumped up to a 5. But otherwise, it was just really, really cute, and I recommend it if you want something following Heartstopper. And then our final 4-star of April, The Familiar. I was not expecting this to be this high. Okay, I was expecting it to be this high before I started reading it. Then when I was reading it, it was mostly a 3-star. I was not wildly enjoying my time. I ended up having to get the audiobook because I was dragging so much. I didn't want to read it. I was just kind of like, I'm so bored. And then when it hits this point in the book where it's like, this is so good. So to me, most of the book is like a 3-star, and then the end was a solid 5-star. So I was like, I'm gonna put this at a 4. I'm gonna put this at a 4 because I can't totally reconcile the center and give it a 5, but that ending was really, really good, and it did make me cry at the end. I wasn't expecting it. And to me, there was like a surprise main character. There was a character who's not supposed to be the main character, but totally was the main character in my head. Or became like very important and had the most important story. But it is following our main character, Lucia, who was living in the middle of the Spanish Inquisition era, and she is a hidden Jew, which is like, Spanish Inquisition did not like people of any other religion whatsoever who were any bit different. And so she has to hide who she is, and her family, she's basically an orphan, and she works as a scullion in this awful house with awful people. And it turns out she has magic though, and the magic is tied to her heritage, and her magic kind of brings her up in the world, and she enters this like tournament thing. So it's really good. Not what I expected. I would definitely give it a try if you were thinking about it. If you're expecting it to be like other Leigh Bardugo books, no. The writing is still really, really good, but it's nothing like her other books. This is so wildly different than anything that I've read. The characters are totally different. I will say, one of the characters, it does almost feel like she was trying to reincarnate the Darkling a little bit, where she was like, couldn't have my happily ever after with him, so let's maybe try it here. Not exactly, the character is very different, but there's a little bit I felt, in my opinion, with one of the characters in here. So I thought that was kind of funny. But yeah, ended up giving it the 4-star. Was not expecting that. Very happy about it. I don't think it could have gone better than that. All right, we are down to our 2 5-stars. So first, let's talk about the one that you guys probably already heard about it if you watched that ARC video. I ended up reading a horror book that I was not expecting to absolutely love, and it is called The Haunting of Velwood. Loved it. Following our main character who, her and her 2 best friends, when they were in college, they went away for a weekend. When they came back, their whole neighborhood was missing and was, or not missing, but like no people. And it's almost like it's enchanted, so you can't really get in. They're the only 3 who can actually pass the barrier. And so over the years, it's been like 20 years or something like that. So that happens in the past, and the whole story revolves around 20 years later or 30 years later, and she's approached by a filmmaker / scientist who wants to explore the area and try and figure out if there's anybody still living there or anything going on. And so she agrees because she wants to see what happened to her family potentially. And it's a ghost town story, but it's really about like trauma and grief and dealing with stuff you've kind of left pent up for years, and the need to let go of things. And it was so good. It's like eerie horror and atmospheric horror. It's not actually scary, but it was phenomenal, and ended up giving it 5 stars. It was just so good, and I really liked the audiobook. I listened to it on audiobook. And one of the graphic novels that I read, I was so excited about this because I picked it up not knowing who the author was, and then I figured out who the author was, and I was like, I used to read their stuff all the time, especially when they had their website operational. What is it called? Bad Dreams in the Night. This is a horror anthology graphic novel by Adam Ellis. I don't know the age of my fan base, but Adam Ellis was like a huge webtoon kind of designer back in the day. He had his own website. A lot of stuff was put on BuzzFeed. I think it was BuzzFeed. And I absolutely adored his comics. And yeah, I had no idea it was coming out with a collection of horror stories. And they're so good. It's everything I wanted from like a short story horror collection in a graphic novel way. Because I love his art style. I love some of the humor in them. Some of them are really dark. Some of them are really sad. It covers a range of topics. And some of them are just goofy. Like and I love that he has a little story about why he wrote the story, or like what it's really about. So like they tell the story and then it kind of says at the end like what it's about. And one of the stories cracked me up because it was just like something killing somebody in the story. And at the end he was like, I was pissed off at my friend, so I wrote a story about something killing her. And I was like, that's so funny. Like all the rest of them are like heartfelt, like this is why I did this. This is the meaning of this. This one's like, my friend was being a jerk, so I killed her off in the story. So I was like, yes, I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I do plan on getting a physical copy. I read an ARC that I got on NetGalley, and it just came out this month. So good. I'm so excited. Definitely getting a physical copy of it. But yeah, that is everything that I read. 2 5 stars. But still mostly a mediocre month, and I definitely had a very much hated 1-star book that will probably be going on my worst books of the year. So you will probably see that 1-star book again. But you know, even though it was kind of like middle of the road reading, I am very happy that I read so many books and I caught up on so many things that I wanted to catch up on. I feel very like I did something. I feel like I got so much done, and I'm so happy about that. But that is everything. This video has gone on way too long. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Make sure you comment down below what you read in March or April, since I did skip that March video. And then make sure tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, etc. What you think I might like or wouldn't like. That is everything that I have for you today. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.